to Sugar Coated. I'm your host, Adrienne Garland, the CEO and founder of She Leads Media. For far too long, women have been conditioned to sugarcoat their words, their actions, and the way they show up in the world, and to conform to certain cultural norms and ideals. This is inherently designed to keep those who are outside of the norm from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence, preventing more women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. Join me each week as we dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women that will encourage you to strip away your sugarcoating and move boldly in the direction of your magnificent dreams. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sugar Coated. I'm thrilled to introduce my next guest to you. Her name is Dorothy Illson, and she's the founder of Needle's Eye Media. It's a boutique digital agency for data-driven businesses looking to scale. Dorothy's also the co-founder and CEO of The Gig, a digital media company that helps freelancers acquire and profit from high-income online sales in 7 minutes a day or less through their flagship email newsletter. Welcome to Sugar Coated, Dorothy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I am so excited just to kind of dive into this whole world of, digital advertising, what data-driven really means, and also you as a woman founder, a woman leader. So let's kind of take a step back before we dive into all the business stuff, and let's learn a little bit about you. So how did you get to sort of where you are right now as we're speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not plan on being an entrepreneur, at least, not at 25, which is, when I started my business. I thought I was going to be an accountant. And I, really had this laser focused goal. I wanted to get a job with, the big four, did my internship, landed the job that I'd worked so hard to get, and then just had this mental crisis of realizing I'm doing this for all the wrong reasons. I'm not excited about this job. I don't like accounting. It's really just this, cookie cutter idea of what I thought success meant, what I thought my parents wanted, what I thought would make people, feel a certain way about me. And so I decided to throw it all away and take a leap. And so ended up giving up my job offer 2 weeks after I graduated, and ultimately went to go, didn't really know what I was going to do or where I was going to land, but through some, twisted turning events, the universe showed me an opportunity and went to work for a startup here in Chicago, was there for a few years, and then took another leap to go off on my own and start the agency.
That's amazing. And, you're lucky in the fact that you recognized early on after you got a taste of, the corporate world and accounting. And I was actually in that world right before I started my business, but that had been after a career in, finance and marketing. And before I left to go out on my own, I was working at one of those, big four accounting firms, not as an accountant, more on the consulting side of things. But it really does kind of show you exactly what corporate is. And it shows you who is also in those roles, those senior roles. And I know for me, I looked up at those people that were higher than me in that organization. And I didn't want to be them, even though I thought I wanted what they sort of had. So I can really relate. And I'm envious that you were able to see that right away and venture out on your own. I think there's this misperception that working for a company like that provides stability. And I think that truly the message needs to be that as an entrepreneur, that's where you're actually in control.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's scary to think that, when you are in corporate or, really in any 9 to 5, I've had friends who are going through this, right now with all the tech layoffs. You can show up to work one day or get an email in your inbox, and all of a sudden you don't have a job anymore. Yeah. So, it's really about kind of having the courage to bet on yourself And I think the degree of like naivety that I had, going into it almost worked to my advantage. Like I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And as you hit obstacles, as you have those, crying on the floor of your office because you don't know, how you're going to move forward, past something happening, you do overcome those things. And then it starts to build that muscle so that you eventually get to a point where, something happens that at one point would have seemed devastating. And, you've worked so hard on building that muscle of resilience and trust in your ability to overcome challenges that you just know, well, I'm going to figure this out just like I figured out, all of the other things that have happened before.
So, Dorothy, that's so awesome how you were able to, recognize that this wasn't for you. And then you went in the completely opposite direction, right? And joined a startup. What was that like for you? And then what out of that experience led you to say, if I could do this for them and I see what's going on, I can certainly do this for myself.
Yeah. Well, so really that experience of that startup, it was a crash course in what it looks like to scale a business, really a bootstrap business. So I was the fourth employee at this company, which I didn't even realize when I joined how early they really were. And it was actually a company in the meal subscription space.
Oh, wow.
Like I wore so many hats when I started there. I mean, I would get there in the morning and I would go down to the warehouse and be packing order slips into boxes. And then I would come up and I would be doing, data analysis, on like ordering and projections. And my role was really concentrated in marketing, but it was really such a lesson of you do what needs to be done in order to move forward. And it's, it's really such a team effort and really scrappy. And so, that was a, totally bootstrap business by the founders and ultimately went on after I left to be acquired in a multiple 9-figure acquisition. So
you're kidding.
Yeah. It was really, really remarkable. And so they got bought by HelloFresh eventually. And so when I left there, it actually wasn't, oh, I did this for them so I could do this, for myself. It was actually, all right, what's the lifestyle I want? Because I had been fortunate there to have a lot of autonomy, a lot of flexibility. I could work remotely when I wanted to. And I wasn't willing to go, quote unquote, backwards in that sense. And so it was less of, I know exactly what I'm going to go do and go offer as a service, and more so, all right, these are the things I'm good at. This is my skill set. What could I go do on my own? And that was really what led me into freelancing. And I think, what is so incredible about freelancing as a path into entrepreneurship is that you don't need to necessarily start with, like, I didn't have history in, advertising or running Facebook ads, or I really, started by finding clients who were willing to take a bet on me, working my butt off and, learning how to deliver results and doing that on a small scale first, getting those reviews, getting those, testimonials and, building from there. And really only took, honestly, it took a few months, maybe 4 months for me to replace what I was making at that startup, and then kept growing from there and eventually morphed into the agency that I still run.
That's amazing. So what was the timing between when you started freelancing and sort of where you are today? How many years has it been?
Yeah, so that was the beginning of 2017 that I went off on my own. Worked for about 2.5 years, I would say, as a solo freelancer, and then started growing a team. And so, really it was, I guess 2020 that I really started as an agency, with a team, helping me to work with our clients. But, I think you had mentioned stability that can come from kind of controlling your own destiny. And I think that's one of my favorite things about freelancing, which is that when you have one of these skills, whether it be paid ads, graphic design, copywriting, when there is a market shift, changes in the market, recessions, they don't tend to hit all sectors of the market equally. So if there is a shift, you have this skill, right? So you don't need to change what you do. You just change who you do it for. And I think that's a really powerful mindset shift that when COVID hit, for example, we lost 40% of our revenue overnight because 2 of our biggest clients were advertising events. But
Yeah.
within probably 6 weeks, we had, replaced those clients with businesses that were thriving during that time, as a lot of businesses were during the pandemic. So I think that's a really powerful thing about, having some of these, skills that we talk about in the gig.
I love this. So I just have to, I'm listening to you speak and I'm saying to myself, you really know your stuff when it comes to figuring out how you go about building a business. Did you learn these skills about how to go out and target the right customers? Were they just, something that you felt in your gut, or was that something that you learned along the way?
Yeah. I mean, so I think the people side of the business has always been my strongest suit. And so it was a lot of trial and error, to be honest, a lot of doing things wrong and figuring it out. But sales was something that I always really enjoyed because it's this value exchange, right? You have the ability to solve someone's problem. And so, I think often people approach sales conversations or trying to find clients from this place of like, gosh, like, I hope they hire me. Like, I need that. Like, I need them to hire me. And it's so much more empowering to think about and approach those conversations from the standpoint of they have a problem and you have the solution to that problem. And so it is this value exchange. And so I think that is, kind of a really key mindset shift to grasp. And really, that's the key to everything, isn't it? Like, you need to be working equally as hard on your mindset as you are on your business. And, I had so many, this is the sugar-coated podcast, like I had so many huge mental traps that I would fall into and, things that really held me back for a very long time that were really all about self-worth, about limiting beliefs. So I think that's really the most important thing ultimately.
I totally agree with you. I actually teach an entrepreneurship class at NYU in the Tisch Center for Hospitality, so event management, hospitality, tourism. And one of the key components of what we teach and what I set the foundation for is mindset. And it feels very counterintuitive or maybe even woo when you're teaching at NYU and you're teaching this class where people expect to come in and, learn about financial statements and growing and scaling. And we get to that. But before we are able to get to that, we do work on going inside and really identifying at the very least what are some of our fears, what are some of our mental blocks, so that we at least know what we're working with before you go and start a company, because that's the stuff that can bring a company down that I don't think anybody talks about. And especially, I'm super focused on women. And I think that women, unfortunately, and again, sweeping statements, but, women do fall into the exact same traps that you're talking about. We have a lot of self-doubt that I don't think it's ours. I think it's society makes us believe that that's how we need to be in order to be accepted. And so we take on something that's not ours. And then all of a sudden we realize we have it. And then we definitely need to unwind it because we're amazing. We can figure anything out, And it's unfortunate because I do think that there's a lot of time and energy wasted toward unraveling something that wasn't ours to begin with. And so I do have to ask, did you have this innate sense of confidence in yourself going into starting a business? Of course, people fall into mind traps and everything, but did you have a base of confidence?
I would say, I did in the sense that I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to, make this happen and to, continue working for myself was the ultimate goal. And, I knew that I would push through and that I would be scrappy. I think for me, the biggest mindset hurdle that I fell into was feeling like I didn't deserve the success that I was getting and that I wasn't worthy of more money, of more, more freedom. I had this really interesting, honestly, my biggest challenge with this was my income was rising year over year over year from the point I started this. And yet a few years into my business journey, I found myself in nearly 6 figures of debt. And
Wow.
it was because I was so convinced that I didn't deserve success and that I wasn't worthy of this, that I self-sabotaged and pushed away everything that came to me.
Wow.
And so it was this, almost this like badge that I would wear, in a negative way of, okay, everyone thinks I'm so successful. I have this, I have this 7-figure business, but, if they really knew, what was going on behind the curtain, if they really knew that I had this debt, that I, had made these bad decisions over here, that's the real me. I don't deserve any of this. And I would tell myself that. And it was when I ended up paying off every single penny of that debt in less than a year's time, once I actually worked on addressing the core issue,
Wow.
which wasn't a financial issue. It wasn't numbers on a spreadsheet. It was that I didn't believe that I was worthy.
Oh my God, Dorothy, this is like big. This is so big. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think at least I can completely relate to you. I have done the same thing. I have, from the outside, and who knows what people think, or at least I think that people think this, like, I'm successful. I'm doing all of these different things. I'm out there. I'm making money, and I have all these clients and stuff. And yet, I too have made some decisions that I don't think were dumb at the time. I really don't. But it has led to debt that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm okay with a little debt, but I'm now in a place where it's too much. And, a business credit card is being declined. And that is something that feels really scary to me. And I wonder why, I did it. And I think that for me, you just hit on something like really deep. It's almost like this really deep seated belief. Again, don't know if it's mine or societal, but that I'm not really successful, right? It's all a show. It's all a freaking show. So, what did you do to address that core issue and get yourself out of that and into this place? Because I think a lot of people could. I really do think a lot of people can understand this and they want to get out of it. Nobody wants to be in debt like this.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I will say it is so common. You start joining masterminds and, networking with, higher level business owners, and you realize like so many people, there's so much more going on behind the scenes than you might think, just looking at someone. And for me, I had to have a complete breakdown in order to, realize what was really going on and start to, break through that. So what happened was, I found myself several times, saying like, all right, I'm buckling down, like I'm going to get rid of this. I had this really high income, and yet, I was, a lot of it was self-sabotaging through like hiring really expensive coaches and, investing in masterminds that I had no business investing in at the time, like doing all these things that like I could justify because it's like, oh yeah, this is taking me to the next level. But, really what I was doing was just self-sabotaging by pushing away all of the money that was coming to me. And so I had this point where I decided, all right, I'm really going to buckle down and I'm going to take care of this. And I, I'm a numbers person. I'm a spreadsheets girl. Like I ran the numbers on the spreadsheet and I said, all right, if I can pay myself this every month, then I'm going to be like I'm going to be able to tackle this debt so quickly. And, I buckled down to, get myself to where I was paying myself that magic number. Right. And all of a sudden I looked up 5 months later after, doing this and paying myself at that level and realized my debt hadn't budged at all. And so that was when, I was a wreck. I was sobbing. I was like, this was supposed to do it. I am making more money than I ever thought that I'd be making at this point in my life. I'm making more money than all of my friends. How is this? Like, and this is really vulnerable for me to talk about because it was painful.
Yeah.
And so that was when I realized I was like, okay, this is not a numbers issue. This is inside of me. So I realized you had asked about confidence, and that was when, someone actually reflected this back to me and said this to me. And when I heard this, like, I just immediately started sobbing because I knew it was true. And what she said was, you have so much confidence in what you do, in the, services you provide and how you can help people and your skills. You have absolutely no confidence in yourself as a person and as a woman.
Oh my God. My God, Dorothy, I feel like you're reflecting me back. I get it. I'm the same way. Confidence in the skills, I can do anything. But the self-worth part of it is shaky.
Yeah. We need to think about how we talk to ourselves, right? My sister reflected back to me once, that I was constantly saying things about how lazy I am. She was like, you are the least lazy person I know. What are you saying?
Yeah.
Because I tied my self-worth to my productivity. And if I wasted, 2 hours, messing around on my phone, I turned that into I'm bad. I should feel shame. And so I think it's really about like sitting, like if you're in this position, if you're kind of, where I was in that kind of moment of devastation, many moments.
Yeah.
I really encourage you to sit with this question of, if you strip away everything that you do for other people, everything that you do for work, who are you? Like, who are you outside of what you do? Because all of that could go away tomorrow, but you would still have value to offer to the world. You would still have inherent value in just who you are, as a person, in the way that you show up and the way that you are. And you don't need to earn that. You don't need to prove that. You just are worthy. And until you believe that, you won't be able to get through any of these issues that are numbers on paper, or are these kind of superficial problems that come from a lack of self-worth.
So, I mean, I've actually, and I'll be vulnerable right back to you, I've actually gone into therapy because of this very issue, this lack of self-worth. And it was very confusing to me because I do have this incredible level of confidence in my skill set and that I can figure anything out. Like, it feels so like, yeah, I know, like there's such a deep knowing there. But even as we're talking, I'm getting a little emotional because, this self-worth and like, who would you be when you strip away all of it? And it's sort of like, I don't know. And even like, I'm sitting here, I'm 52 years old and I'm like, I'm not really sure. Like, I think I'm like at least nice and fun. Like those are two things.
Yeah.
But so I guess that would be who I would be, if I had nothing. But how do you get to this idea of this self-worth and just the knowing? Because you in your mind, you can intellectualize it. Like, okay, I get it. But how do you like really feel it?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I did. First of all, I'll kind of clarify this. Like, it's not about what other people think, but sometimes going to the people who are closest to you in your life and starting there can be really helpful. So I actually, kind of identified, all right, who are the people closest to me? Friends that I've had since I was a child, my sister, like people who are super, super close to me. And I asked them, how would you describe me? How do you see me? Like, what are the words that you would use to describe me? And, if my job, if everything that I do, kind of went away tomorrow, why do you still care about me? And asking those questions is very powerful because it can start to give you insight into the things that you don't really give yourself credit for. And so when I went through this exercise, it was so emotional, like reading these, these messages that I got back of, people, my friends reflecting back to me, that I am kind, that I am compassionate, that I am joyful, that I am brave, like words that I never really kind of thought to describe myself as. And so I really sat with that for some time. And then journaling is really powerful for me. And so it's one of those things where it's so hard to stay consistent with, but then you realize that the times when your like mental health is the strongest are like the times when you are doing, those things to take care of yourself. So I spent so much time just reflecting and journaling and thinking about who I want to be in the world. Like what are the qualities that I admire, and, where do I see those in myself? And then, I really do, you mentioned therapy. I am such a strong believer in therapy, in working with people who can help you to kind of see through your own bullshit and the stories that you tell yourself. So I think there's no one answer. It's a combination of so many things.
My goodness. This conversation, I just feel like is really special. And I appreciate you just sharing your wisdom and your experience and being so vulnerable like this. It is definitely not what I expected to be talking about, but I'm so glad that we did. And maybe it's because I personally need to hear this. And it's funny because, I don't know you well, but what does come across to me just talking to you here is I do see a lot of joy and kindness just in your face and the way that you are. So that does come through like really clearly. So your friends are right. Yeah. And the brave part, I don't really know because I don't really know you well, but I think there's evidence here, the bravery of taking these big leaps and knowing that you could do it and then overcoming these really big obstacles that, quite frankly, not everybody is able to overcome them. And, it's funny when you come out of corporate, like I did, budgets, right? You're working with these budgets, working with 42, 50, $100 million budgets. And, we used to joke around a lot like, oh yeah, we could do that $20,000 thing. It's a rounding error. Right. So it's like the perspective that you have, $150,000 to one might seem like I'll never pay that off in my lifetime. The other perspective is it's only $150,000. How long will it really take to pay that back? 4 months? I mean, really, it's really not that much money depending on how you look at it. And I think that that's the power part of it too, right? If you look at it like, well, okay, $150,000, think I could pay this off in 6 months, no big deal. And then you do it, but if you're like, in my lifetime, I'm never going to be able to pay this off, you won't be able to pay it off because you just don't have the right mindset. So, putting a pin in the mindset, and it's the most important thing. And it is the thing that we need to, take care of the most. So I actually want to just kind of shift because, right, so you are working with data-driven businesses. Can you explain, what that means or what characterizes a data-driven business?
Yeah. So it is very easy to, just be driven by our emotions in terms of, kind of how we make decisions inside of our business. And to some degree, that's a good thing, right? I believe in intuition. Like I'm one of the most woo-woo people out there. So, this is certainly, not to discredit that. However, what my agency does specifically is, we manage, we run paid traffic, right? So we're managing our clients' ad accounts. And so many of our clients, came to us because they were, often a lot of them were trying to run their own ad accounts. And when you are spending money, often a lot of money, driving traffic, to your business, it can be very stressful to log into your ad account and see like, God, I spent, even if it's $500 or whatever on this, this campaign, and, I haven't gotten a sale yet. And like, oh my gosh, like what, like it can cause you to just really kind of react and make decisions inside of your ad account that, really are not rational in terms of, what the data is actually telling you. So when I say like, data driven, like we want to work with data driven clients, it's clients who understand that the numbers tell you what to do. The data tells you what to do. It tells a story. And if you can kind of have the perspective to step back and look, kind of see the forest for the trees, if you will, and to kind of learn to read the story that the data is telling you and where it's telling you to go next, then, you will ultimately get much better results from that.
I love that. And that's such a perfect example too, because, that $500 that you spent that yielded quote unquote nothing, it might not have yielded the sale, but it will yield insight. And so then the next $500 that you spend is probably going to be however many times as efficient as that first $500. But you can never get there until you actually spend that first amount and gather the learnings. It's almost classic, the entrepreneurial way, right? Put something out there, test it, get feedback, and iterate.
Right.
That's the exact same concept.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way that you can do that effectively is if you actually know your numbers, if you have your numbers, right? So,
That's right.
So what I encourage, like whatever your business is, whether you're e-commerce, services, digital products, understand the steps that someone goes through from first hearing about you, whether that's clicking an ad or, seeing you on Instagram, and lay out all of those steps between that first touch point and ultimately making the sale. And then figure out how you can begin to track how many people are hitting each step. So I'll give you a really simple example. Like when I first started freelancing, selling my services, managing Facebook ads, it was at the time, I was reaching out to people on Upwork. It's a freelancing platform where people kind of post jobs. So, my steps were, okay, I submit proposals. Those proposals turn to messages. Those messages turn to intro calls. The intro calls turn to audits, and the audit may turn into a client. So I had a spreadsheet where I would track, okay, like every single day, how many proposals did I send? How many people responded? How many of those turned into calls? How many turned into audits? How many turned into sales? And when you track those numbers or whatever your steps are, you can very quickly start to see where the breakdown is. Is your proposal ineffective? Or are you doing a great job at your proposals, but it's the sales calls or it's the audit? Or, you can, once you know where your leaks are in this, in this funnel, in this bucket, then you can work to plug those leaks and systematically close those gaps and improve, the ultimate results at the end.
I love this so much. There's such gold in this whole entire conversation on a million different levels, but I really like this idea of, start with your passion, right? Like start your business with your passion, fine, or your skill set, and have a little passion, tap into your intuition. But very quickly, start thinking about your business as a business and as if you were a consultant working on someone else's business, where you remove yourself a little bit from the outcome, because otherwise you are going to start to, even if it's that there's a breakdown in what your example in the proposals, someone who has maybe some low self-worth, which I can relate to, starts to not think about how can I improve the proposal, but I suck at proposal writing. I'm a loser. My business is terrible. I'm never going to get this. Instead of being more like a scientist saying, oh, this isn't working. How can I tweak it? Let me go find other proposals that probably work, or let me test out 2 different proposals and see which one is better and then choose.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I just love this so much. And I think this concept works not only for sales, for ads, but for everything in your business, right? Take that step back so that you can approach things from more of a business mind, a logical perspective. That's the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know how to preach it. I just need to practice it.
Yes. Always easier said than done.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, and then in addition to, and I wanted to just ask one really quick question about Needle's Eye Media. So are you working across like different types of companies? So like you mentioned e-commerce and things. Is it products and services, or do you just focus on one, either niche or type of business?
Yeah. So, I mean, over the 6 years since I started the business, I have worked with, just about everything under the sun. But today, we really do focus on digital product businesses. So most of our clients are selling online courses on the front end and then ascending into, higher ticket programs or, masterminds or, one-on-one coaching, things like that on the back end. So, we work with a lot of webinar funnels, but primarily digital product businesses is really where we focus.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think that's not grabbing the word, but like syncs up really nicely with the audience who listens into this sugar-coated podcast. Because a lot of the women are doing the masterminds and the webinars and then selling the higher ticket one-on-one consulting or coaching services. So this is gold. This is so good. So then you are also the co-founder and CEO of The Gig. Can you tell us a little bit about The Gig?
Yeah. So this really came out of, my co-founder and myself. His name's Jim Hamilton. He's worked with me in the agency, since 2020. And freelancing was both of our kind of entry points into entrepreneurship. And we are so passionate about freelancing as an opportunity to create more freedom, more income, more of the things that you may want in your life. And also, it doesn't really matter kind of where you're starting, right? So like I had some skills or some experience in marketing, but really didn't have experience in ads. Jim was a massage therapist when he decided that he, wasn't satisfied with that career and decided to become a copywriter, right? So,
wow.
We just both really believe in freelancing, and the opportunity that it provides. And so The Gig is an email newsletter that is really all about teaching you, how to find clients, how to work with clients, how to work for yourself, and really how to build a successful freelancing business.
This is wonderful. I am definitely signing up for it. I'm going to also give it to my son, who is studying communications and advertising in college. And his summer job doesn't start until the end of June when elementary schools get out, because he's at a camp, he's a lifeguard. So, I've said to him, you must be earning money from now, because you're home, until the end of June when your lifeguarding starts. And he keeps talking about freelancing and outsourcing and everything. And he doesn't really know exactly what he's talking about. So I'm going to sign him up for the newsletter and tell him, take a look at all of this, go back to other newsletters and start your own little freelancing business, honey.
All right. Well, let me give a gift to your son and to the rest of your audience as well. So awesome. I have this training that we actually sell through The Gig on my exact step-by-step process for how to get clients from Upwork when you're brand new. And I would love to give it away to your audience, to your son. So you can go to thegig.io/C/VIP. /C/VIP. And if you opt in there, you'll get that Upwork training for free. And anyone who subscribes to The Gig, you'll also get our high income skills guide, which goes through, kind of the skills that have the biggest demand and the biggest opportunity in freelancing.
Oh my, thank you so much for that gift. That is wonderful. He is signing up for this as soon as I get off with you. I'm going to wake him up because, he got home at 1:00 in the morning yesterday. But oh my gosh, this has just been such an incredibly wonderful conversation. Like I said, on so many different levels. I appreciate talking to you so much and for you just sharing everything about yourself, your challenges, and how you overcame everything and your businesses. So how can people, if they want to connect with you, maybe talk more, learn a little bit more, how can they do that?
Thank you, Adrienne. It's been an honor, seriously. So you can connect with me I'm on Instagram at Dorothy Illson, LinkedIn, send me a message. I don't have anything to sell you. Honestly, we have a free newsletter. The agency's all full, so I have nothing to sell you, but I would love to connect. So find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and we can go from there. And then you can find The Gig at thegig.io.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.